We go under the Spectre of the Gun and delve into the seedy underbelly of a galaxy where Imperial Agent observes from the shadows through a sniper scope. Then we'll jump to light speed and cross the galaxy to visit the front lines of the war, where we'll observe the heroics of Republic troopers doing what they do best, blowing things up. Then we'll round out the show with a lively discussion on the latest Bioware Q&A and take a look at some of the upcoming some of the upcoming 1.3 patch information. All that and more on this week's episode of TORked.
It's time for TORked, the Star Wars The Old Republic podcast with unlimited power. My name is Chris, and joining me every single week are our two lovely hosts. Hi there, Heather.
Hello there, Chris.
And hello there, Nikki.
Hello, Chris.
Now, we're doing episode 6 live on April 30th for release on May 1st, 2012. And we got a bunch of stuff coming up in episode 6, Spectre of the Gun. But before we get to the news, and before we introduce our first math segment, the ladies want to talk a little Imperial Agent and Republic Trooper.
Sure, I'll take it. So, with the Imperial Agent, starting off at the top, fitting into the MMO Trinity, the Imperial Agent is pretty much a very potent DPS on both sides, whether you pick Sniper or Operative. They're both just ridiculously powerful DPS classes, but also if you're going with the Operative, you have a second option as running Healer. It's actually, just from what I've seen, especially since patch 1.2 and seeing a few guildies who run Operative, very, very solid healer class and very well-rounded, very well built. Then just moving, of course, into the advanced classes, starting off with that Operative, stealthy DPS in the concealment tree. It's unfortunately received a slight nerf to that concealment tree in patch 1.2, but still very potent, very rogue-esque. From if there's anyone's from some previous MMOs, that's kind of how it feels to play. Poison daggers, vibro knives, very stabby in the back, sort of stuff. And then, of course, with the healer, just healing scan, medic darts, fun stuff. Either way, very interesting class to play. And then the other one being the sniper, you're looking at your sniper rifle in the marksmanship tree for your range. The engineering tree is a little more tech, using droids, explosive, things like that. And then between the two of them, you have the lethality tree, which is basically just a lot of the shared skills, the poison dart, poison grenades, things like that. And then if you want to hybridize from there, the best way to hybridize is if you're in the Operative Advanced class and then just mixing your medic in either concealment or lethality. So, then moving into the companions, first one you get as an agent, you have
Calico Janice, range tank, romanceable option for the males. You also have melee DPS, Victor Hylas. Yeah, I was like, let's butcher his name. I can't remember the female robot romance option. Dr. Loken.
Loken. I'm pretty sure it's Loken.
Yeah, Loken. I thought so. Healer DPS, and remembering that he transforms into a raccoon. But depending on the stance you have him in. So another male romance option, range DPS is Ensign Reina Temple. And you've also got another melee tank, interesting crazy droid, Scorpio. Because you need a crazy droid.
Absolutely.
Yes, the Imperial Agent's companions are probably some of the most eccentric people you'll find.
Yeah.
Kaleo Janice especially, she's rat-attacky, she's got a very sordid past, so that really comes out in her storyline. Victor Hylas, he's done some specific works with the Killiks. If you've been to Alderaan, you know who the Killiks are. I won't spoil too much in the storyline, but you'll find he's been working with them maybe a little bit too much. Well, Dr. Loken just transforming into a Raccool, Loken Mad, Loken Smash, Raccool.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Raina Temple's oddly enough the one that's the least crazy, because she doesn't change into anything. But and then there's Scorpio, which if anyone saw the April Fool's Star Wars videos for the
he's
ship
from that one.
prank. Yes, that's from the faux romance video that they did for
Right.
the April Fool's joke. So 2VR was trying to romance Scorpio. So if anyone saw that,
Yeah,
and has
right.
actually experienced some of the Scorpio storyline,
Yeah.
Yep.
it's
Yep. For a
it's rather interesting.
for a fresh-shotted training guy moving through this, I suppose it makes sense that as this agent, that as you move through, you have option for a conscience. You're trying to move through the Imperial agenda, that you would gather all these kind of eccentric people to kind of get all of the information you want and to move forward into that storyline, into that life.
Huh.
Yeah, very cunning, very cloak and dagger storyline.
Sounds really compelling.
It's probably one of the best. It has the least amount of canon references when you think about it, but
Yeah.
as soon as people get into it and start playing it, it's very well done.
Yeah. Very often
especially-
called a deep, very adult without being, adult, more like a very deep storyline where it's, you have to pay, where there's a lot going on. There's a lot of backstory for all the characters.
Very cool.
There's a lot of those subtle nuances and as we said before, some very eccentric characters. So that's definitely something you can really sink in your teeth into compared to something like the Jedi and Sith. They're both very, their stories were very used to by comparison to the Agent, which is very new, very fresh.
Well, that's kind of the appeal to it for some people.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Something we just totally have not seen before.
Yeah. Well, Nikki, do you want to jump over to the Republic Trooper and set us up there?
Sure. With the Trooper, oddly enough, that's was my second character to level up. Trooper, you're fitting into the MMO Trinity. You have the tanking class, which is a shield specialist spec Vanguard advanced class. The DPS, which is pretty much either advanced class, pretty much any tree, just as long as you're not speccing into tanking or healing. And then, of course, the healer spec is the Commando advanced class in the combat medic tree. So essentially from there, pick your advanced class, go with whatever you're after. With Vanguard, you, of course, tank spec with shield specialist, or the DPS tree with tactics or assault specialist. Keep in mind, for the Vanguard, you're going to be much more up close and personal, whereas going with Commando for DPS, you're going to be further back. You've got the big assault cannon, those giant assault cannons that you might have seen in like the Clone Wars, things like that. Those absolutely gigantic blasters that just seem to blow everything into a million pieces. And then lastly, with healing, the combat medic, that's of course Commando, very similar in some ways to the bounty hunter healing spec. So just generally speaking, for hybridization from there, it's a little more subtle from what I've seen, primarily just going, say, mostly up the gunnery tree for DPS, and then just dropping, say, your last 8 to 10 points in your combat medic if you're a Commando, or, for example, if you're Vanguard, let's say you're primarily tanking, but you decide you want a little bit more offensive punch, you can drop some extra points into the tactics, which gives you, I think, like a vibro knife, something like that, just to add a little bit of extra punch. So,
yeah.
And yes,
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
For the companions with this character, one good thing is with all the gear, heavy armor, all kind of aim endurance, great hand-me-down material.
Ah, yeah.
So you don't have to worry so much about going out there and worrying about each different one.
Yes, that was huge when I was leveling up
Yeah.
my trooper. Was just pass everything down the line as soon as you get
Right.
new stuff. Just keep passing it on, and it was great.
Yeah.
Never once searched for companions gear.
Hmm.
I
Yep.
never had to sacrifice, say, picking up commendations to get upgrades for
Oh,
my
yeah.
armor because I'm keep passing my stuff down. So I was never having to worry about picking up companion armor as quest rewards.
Yeah,
I
like the
like
family
that.
who's every little kid gets the pass me downs down the line. But
in a video game, it's a good thing.
well, yeah, because it's much easier that way.
Yeah.
But your range DPS is Eric Jorgen, it's a Cathar, and oddly enough, a female romance. Should you wish to go hang out with him,
If you
Alara
like your
Dorn.
cat a little too much.
Yeah, it's okay.
If Cat does it for you.
Yeah, slightly less crazy is Alara Dorn, and actually Imperial Defector, and a male romance option.
Huh.
So she kind of has that going on. You know, a lot of her story seems like, oh great, I'm an Imperial Defector.
Oh,
Yes,
Okay.
everyone don't hate me.
Okay.
M14X, range tank, prototype battle droid. I saw him and I just thought he was cool. Little just crawling around battle droid that looked really neat. Tano Vic, another melee tank, loose cannon, you know, just big soldier guy.
Yeah.
He's a little nuts.
Well, you know.
Yeah.
Explosives and demolitions expert who likes their job a little too much.
Well,
Yeah.
I think there's been enough of those guys in some movies, you know.
That sounds like the right kind of companion to have those, as long as he's on your side.
Well, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, to balance him out, you got that philosophical soldier, melee DPS, Yoon.
Okay.
So you kind of it balances out a little bit. You got the crazy, you know, gun happy person, a little more philosophical.
Right. The philosophical soldier.
Yep. And Yoon's pretty interesting. He's a Gand, so pretty much everything he says is all subtitled, but he's almost like kind of having Yoda around, just the way he talks. It's kind of this very as kind of as show notes say, he's just very philosophical, speaks in, you know, just kind of almost very omniscient way, and sometimes referring to himself in the third person.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the show notes, all of this stuff is broken out in the show notes. If you go to jupiterbroadcasting.com, look for TORked 6. A lot of these points that the ladies are covering will be there.
Yep. And then just moving on to the Republic Trooper storyline really quick. What you're going, basically who you are is you start off the game when you're a trooper. You are recently out of the academy. You're in Spec Force Division. You're a new young hotshot joining the Republic military's most elite unit called Havoc Squad. And essentially you take on the missions that no one else can.
You are when the army of one needs something, you get sent.
Awesome. So it's kind of, that's kind of how it is for my Sith Inquisitor too, is when they've sent in the troops and nobody's been able to get the job done, they send me in.
Yeah.
Kind of that same vibe. Well, interesting.
So and I'll just give a quick equipment rundown for both the classes.
Yeah.
So with the Imperial Agent, to start off with, cunning is your primary stat. Period.
Okay.
All you're going to be looking for from there on in is, after you're boosting your cunning, then you're definitely going to want to try and strike the balance to boost out your crit rating and your surge rating more than anything else, because of course with your sniper you're trying to get those really powerful shots off, or powerful explosive droid, an agent you're trying to, an operative, you want the vibro knife stab to be really potent, or really strong heal. So you're going to want to boost the crits. So of course the crits are going to be much more frequent, and then also the surge just to make those crits that much more potent. For the most part, I wouldn't worry so much about the power stat, just because you're going to try and make those crits that much more often and that much bigger. So those really aren't something huge to worry about. The only other thing you might want to consider is throwing a little bit of alacrity in there, so you can get that ambush or snipe off a little bit quicker, or in the case of the operative healer, to get some of those heals cast a little bit quicker if you need to get them to
Sure.
save teammates'
Mhm.
life.
Sure.
Then moving on to the trooper, essentially what you're going to be after is aim for most of the classes, with the exception, of course, tanking. But with the commandos or DPS vanguards, aim primary stat, and then power, crit, surge, and alacrity, pretty much in that order. Crit and surge can take more of a priority for commandos doing the gunnery tree, doing DPS. You want a little bit more crit and surge than you will want anything else, just to make yourself really potent damage output. Whereas with something like the vanguards or the commando healer, then power to make your power's going to be a little bit more important, make the heals overall more potent, and also get some of that alacrity if you're a healer, get those cast times down a little bit, just so you can save teammates, save a companion, so they don't end up dead. And then lastly, endurance being your primary focus. If you are a tanking vanguard, then after that, look for armors and things like that with defense, shield, and absorption ratings. Boost those up, so you are a walking fortress, and just covered in Durasteel, and Siths can swing at you with their lightsaber all day. Nothing's going to happen.
Big giant wall between bad guys and everyone who's actually trying to kill and your healers is slightly useful sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. Well, there you go. There is the TORked summary of the Imperial Agent and the Republic Trooper. Now, one of the things that's been going on since TORked 5 is a lot of talk in the media about Star Wars: The Old Republic's numbers. So I think it's our turn to give our take on it in the TORked news. It's time for the TORked news. The first story, just like I teased a moment ago, is the whole Star Wars: The Old Republic losing players, not losing players. Well, of course, Bioware came out and was talking with GameSpot's editor and said that they claim that their subscribe numbers are not dipping, but the concurrent users are.
Yeah, so just kind of saying that that's the reason why there are, the light server populations that you see when you log in. And some people have been kind of concerned about that, saying, how much of the numbers dropped. Like you said, they're just saying that it's concurrent numbers, and there's a chance that should this continue, they might offer some sort of server merges or free character transfers to certain servers to maybe boost the population of those, give people a better, active population at any one time.
Right. What do you think? Does that kind of sound like, to me, it sounds a little bit like crap, because you don't generally have low concurrent players unless you have less players. And you're not generally talking server merges unless you're expecting not to have a lot more players.
Well,
in my experience.
Possibly. I mean, you don't want to oversell the fact that there's lower numbers. I mean, it's a brand new MMO. You want to say,
yeah,
you have the numbers.
Like to me, I guess maybe a better way to say is it seems like spin.
Well, a couple months in, it's perfectly reasonable to say that people will be logging on at different times. They're not spending, 20 hours a day on
that
the
initial
game.
Burst of like, oh my god, I gotta check it out is over.
Yeah. Must live on Tatooine, must live on Hoth for a month, and not, pure real world sun or anything.
Right.
But, it's died down a little bit. So it's understandable there'd be some concurrent user dip in population.
Word.
Now, the future will see exactly what's going on, but I'm hopefully not worried too much about this.
No, hopefully not. In fact, we got another story that might help with that. But Nick, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was just looking through some of what was said, and there was definitely kind of that original hype. The game gets released, but one of the things I think that's been happening is that a lot of servers got open and a lot of people went on a lot of different servers.
Yeah.
Whereas because things have kind of died down, some of the hype's gone away, and we're just seeing, especially just with the TORked crew itself, some of those server populations reason I think some of them are dwindling is because all of a sudden friends realized, other friends or old friends, old acquaintances, old gaming buddies, they're on different servers, and they've essentially decided, and some of them have actually decided, okay, well, I have my character over on this server, but because I want to play with all my friends and they're all over on the other server, I'm going to bite the bullet and remake my character on the server with all my friends. So the reason you're seeing those light populations, in part, I think, is because people are doing their own self-serve server migration, as it were. Whereas, and not waiting for character transfer. I think a lot of them will still transfer those characters after the fact, but I think that's kind of the biggest thing, is those people who came in just to try it out, that's kind of died off. So that's where you're getting some of the light population.
It's just a swing. When the game was fresh, you had those extremely long wait periods for some people, and we all pulled out our hair, and and it's died down a little bit now, and so everyone's like, wait, now I'm complaining about the population not being high enough.
It'll stabilize out. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And I also, some of the stuff, like there was rumors about losing giant amounts of people, and I think it's just some of that. I think is there's a few, perhaps few MMOs getting a little long in the tooth. I won't name names. Going and introducing Kung Fu Pandas or something crazy like that. But essentially, they're just making up stuff to rain on the new person's parade.
Nikki, while we're chatting with you, you had a story about PvP changes, and one of the Greg Zuler, right? He came out and was giving us some background info. What did you get?
That's just another quick update for the PvPers. What's ended up happening is the formula for expertise rating has changed, and if anyone's doing a lot of PvP, they are already familiar with expertise, but for those who aren't, expertise is basically introduced when you hit level 50. Your PvP, all of a sudden, you're not just basing it on your regular stats. Expertise comes into play, and essentially what that does is it's your boost for your buffs, damage resistance from other players, boosts your damage output against other players, your healing, and that sort of thing. So what they've done is they've changed it so that PvP gear is now even more important, because they were finding that certain raid gear was actually doing more for players in PvP than the PvP gear was. And I actually think this is kind of a good thing, that they're making the expertise more relevant, so that once you hit level 50, you have that completely new stat that allows PvP to kind of be its own self-contained thing, so that because I always think that there needs to be a little bit of a disconnect between PvP and PvE, because you really don't want a situation where one or the other system is causing or negatively affecting the other. So you don't want the player versus environment content negatively affecting PvP and vice versa. So by making the expertise stat more important, you basically end up with this in a situation where you get your PvP gear, you go in PvP, great, you're more effective with that gear, but then because you were a hardcore PvPer leveling up, it doesn't necessarily give you an advantage with gear by going in there. Or if you're a very good raider, you can all of a sudden get gear that's superior to people who just PvP, which is essentially what George Solar was addressing.
Yeah, that PvE, PvP balance in gear is always going to be an interesting, how do they do it? How do they balance it? And what's important in various places?
Yeah, they just wanted to make absolutely sure that PvP gear is best for PvP, player versus environment gear is best for raiding, hard mode flashpoints, etc. So there's not, a situation where one set of gear from the other pool is actually better than something from, the first pool, and they're mixing, and certain people are kind of getting shortchanged because they don't raid or they don't PvP or something like that.
Yeah, good points. All right, well, this might help with their whole numbers problem that we were talking about. There's a TV campaign launching, and on top of that, Bioware is expanding Star Wars: Old Republic into new European and Middle Eastern countries. So this is interesting because it's actually 3, I believe, separate videos that are all up on YouTube right now. So you can actually check them out. We have links in the show notes, but there's a video for the Legacy, video for the Jedi, and a video for the Sith. And I believe these are going to be aired in all kinds of different areas, not just the ones that they're launching in coming up. So this could be a decent push. Maybe we'll see some subscriber numbers go up from this.
Yep, and it'll be very helpful for the people in those locations. You know, it'll have a server closer to them, so that'll be, you know, nice and have quicker availability for them.
Right, right.
And something else to point out, if somebody saw the original set of commercials from TOR, these newer commercials, they also have the, I think it's Lance Henriksen. He played Bishop in the Aliens movies. He's voice of Master Nostoral on TOR's website. But he's doing the voiceovers for these commercials. If you see them, he's very well done voiceover, talking about, just especially with the Jedi and Sith trailers, from just kind of selling it, and just, I think there's. Are you
this kind of a person? You should be a Jedi. Are you that kind of a person? You should be the Sith. Very
just take our personality test.
Yeah.
Just a good set of visuals, and next round really trying to sell the game, kind of like how we saw again another to be unnamed MMO breaking out, people like Mr. T and Chuck Norris and William Shatner.
Now, one of the things that they slipped into the 1.2 patch was actually this framework to detect what players were attempting to do as exploits in the game. Nikki, did you see the story about action being taken against exploits and cheats?
Yes, I did. With 1.2, they decided to take a few extra measures because they were seeing, again, primarily in PvP here, speed hacking and teleportation cheats. So just generally people being able to move a lot faster and or teleporting. And I know that, as soon as people start cheating, not only, they're just generally ruining the game experience for a lot of people who legitimately want to go in there and play. And I also wouldn't be surprised if maybe the reason why the ranked war zones were held back, part of the reason, aside from making them look that much better, is they all of a sudden, they were seeing this going on, they were monitoring it, they weren't able to track it down as well as they wanted to, whereas now they figure they've got a good way to watchdog it. So now with ranked war zones, because it's for your ranking, they're playing in the big leagues for those ranked war zones, they don't want people exploiting it. So if anything, props to anyone looking at the PvP, making sure these exploits are no longer happening, because the last thing you want is someone coming in, running exploits and cheating and ruining the experience, because that's just not fair to anyone who's, legitimately trying to become that war hero and get on top of the rankings.
It's losing the fun, it's losing the match. There's a lot of things going on that you just want everyone to play on the same set of rules.
Yeah, absolutely. And go ahead.
I was just going to say, the one thing Bioware definitely doesn't want, especially for people to take their PvP seriously, you don't want to have any chance that someone's going to say, oh, the best PvPer in Star Wars: The Old Republic is probably using exploits. This way, crack down on it. It's not even a discussion anymore.
Then what am I going to blame when I lose? So Star Wars: The Old Republic's game director popped up this week and talked a little game event stuff, didn't he, Heather?
Yes, I very much loved the Rakul event.
Yeah.
Admitted it was a really popular event, that more things like this are going to go on in the future where it just sort of pops up in game. There have actually been a couple of smaller events that are kind of snuck in that have passed, a certain color crystal egg or some little pets through Easter eggs or whatever. So there's a lot of different sizes and a lot of different ways you could find it out and how well they announce it. One thing I did see is they're interested in making them one-off events. So what I was reading is that it may be possible that the Rakul event was a Rakul event. Does it come back or not? Question mark. So you can say, hey, I remember when we had that, when that happened, we got this pet. So it's interesting. They put a lot of work into this.
Mm-hmm.
So on one hand, think that it would be something that these kind of big events would come back. But it seems to me that they're thinking about making it just this happened in history.
It's kind of interesting how they did it, right? Because they didn't create, well, for the part that I played, there wasn't any new maps generated. It was just taking the existing assets and adding new NPCs and things like that to them. So I guess it seems like an economical way to do it.
Well, yeah, it's definitely the way to do it. It's not that you don't have to create, like you said, you don't have to create a whole new map. You can just dump these activities into this area and pull them out when it's done. But still, I mean, there were, NPCs and, a lot of visual assets made. So it would be interesting if these kind of things were one-off events, and it makes that more compelling that to stick with your character.
James Olin, is it Olin? Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Okay. We have a link to his Twitter account too in the show notes.
Yes, we do.
And something I can just think just worth mentioning briefly is even this, well, two things. With the way the Raccoon event works with this one, it gives Star Wars: The Old Republic a much more finite timeline, because when you think about how they've done, especially the Bioware games, there was the Knights of the Old Republic, there was, of course, its sequel, and then now with the Old Republic, there's a very definite timeline. There are characters that are ever present in this timeline. So they're probably wanting to make this, the events and the game in and of itself exist in a certain period of time and really give you that continuity. Yeah. So that as the game progresses, they can say, especially just with the rat ghouls being self-contained, they can start by saying, okay, it starts on Taurus, then at this point it moved to Tatooine, there was an outbreak, and then it was, it subsided, and then it moves to another planet, there's some new content, so the Raccoon event can come back, but it's not the same. Right. It happens in a chronological order.
It spreads, yeah.
So there is a historical timeline going on throughout all these events that...
Well, and it makes you want to get in and play them all, too, because you don't want to miss it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And anyone who, say, hasn't subscribed to Star Wars yet, they would see, hey, they've got these events. They hear about the Raccoon event, so when they hear about the next one coming, anyone who hasn't been there to experience it is just really pumped to see it come back.
Right.
Then the latest incarnation of something like that.
Speaking of things that are really pumped, EA's stock got some pumping this week, didn't it, Nikki?
Yes, there was a rumor that Nexon, Korean company, was considering buying out EA, or just something, the exact one, Nexon contacting EA about making an offer. No word as to what was going to happen. But essentially, I think in a lot of cases, and quoting our expert here, the idea of Nexon buying out Electronic Arts seems just a little preposterous, given the amount of cash it would take from, for Nexon to build up in order for them to actually acquire EA.
Yeah.
And essentially, if anything, and what you'd be seeing is something perhaps more like a merger. There is possibility that maybe there's going to be a divestiture and acquisition possibility, perhaps, swapping of divisions, if Nixon's got some stake in North America, EA's got some stake over in Asia somewhere, they'll do a trade, or perhaps some kind of a merger sort of thing, but the idea of a sheer buyout just seems a little bit far-fetched. But also there's certain possibilities, if there was like a buyout or some kind of merger or takeover, that U.S. government could step in, because of course then there's the monopoly laws.
Yeah. That'd be really big,
And also there's there might be slight possibility of U.S. job protection coming in there, but again, there's
a lot of
this is all very out there, because of course it's rumor. Both companies say we don't speculate on rumors. And,
I guess we'll know more. I mean, we'll just kind of look at it and watch the story and see what happens. Maybe nothing will happen. You never know.
Yeah. And like I said, Nexon could have made an offer for any number of random things. It doesn't mean the whole company. It could have just been certain assets changing hands, or EA's trying to get rid of something because, again, Asian market, they're trying to get rid of stuff that, it's kind of like the fifth wheel. So give it to somebody who can actually make use of the assets.
Right.
Just that sort of thing. If
That makes sense.
I think is more likely
Yeah.
than any big, huge blockbuster deal.
I agree. All right, well, let's keep moving right along because we're going to kick it over to our first math segment in TORked. And this week, Heather's going to tell us all about rested XP.
Welcome to the TORked Math segment. Heather's here, and we're going to talk rested XP. I think all of us are probably pretty familiar with the concept, but SOTOR does its own implementation, and Heather's had a chance to go through the numbers, and you're going to break it down for us, aren't you, Heather?
Yes.
All right, so tell me about rested XP and how I can maximize my rested XP.
Okay. Well, rested XP, it's intended for players, kind of give a boost to XP for players who may not be able to log on as often as some of their friends. So if you, or be able to get in the game as much often as you want to. So if you log out in a rest area, like it's Cantina, the fleet, your personal ship, and when you log out, it sort of boosts, it gives you this boost. You see it as a green bar whenever you come back in.
Right, sort of an overlay over the existing XP area. And I've noticed that the longer I'm away from the game in these rested areas, the more rested XP I get.
That's right. So you build up this rested XP and you get a higher XP rate for each kill, and various things that you do. So what it breaks down to as you can get 100% of your current level over the course of a week.
Oh, okay.
So if it takes, 20,000 for the level you're at, you can gain up to that much of rested XP, even if it rolls into the next level.
So if I'm gone for a week, I essentially get my entire XP amount's worth of rested XP as well. So
yes,
that's pretty nice, actually.
Yeah. So it pretty much maths out to about 14.3% of per day.
Okay.
So you can get that extra boost per day. So what you might want to do is you have secondary characters or alts, make sure you log them out in a rest zone. So when you come back, you can get that boost to get them caught up much faster.
Right. There you go. Now, so if it's based off that, then if I'm at a higher level, then that actually would probably mean it takes longer, or does it take the same amount of time depending on my level? It's just the amount that I get is different. Is that how it works?
It scales the same. So at level 20, it takes a week. At level 49, it takes a week.
Oh, okay. That's
so
easy.
It's just the amount of XP for that level. So level 45 or 49, it is more XP than you would get at 20. The exact number. Level 24, it takes 126,500 roughly.
Right.
So you can get that much XP points doubled for however long until you use it up.
And so it's at the weak point that it just stops collecting rested XP and you're just not getting any kind of benefit.
Yeah, you're not getting any extra benefit.
Yeah. And then, of course, when you've played through it because the green bar below is no longer green anymore. It's just your regular XP bar.
Yep.
Any other tidbits we should know about rested XP?
Not much. It's really handy for, like I said, the secondary characters, or if you're able to play every day, maybe a friend can't.
Yeah.
Then it'll help them bridge the gap between the two of you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, there's TORk's look at rested XP. I think we've got some community Q&A now.
Welcome back. Now, the community Q&A kicked off this week, April 27th. And Heather, I think you have a little information about events, don't you?
Yeah, we were talking about it with the Rackles. They've already have plans for future events, how to make these, server-wide, small, all the different sizes, how they announce them. They've already had great success with these, so they're looking forward to making these come more often in the future.
Very nice, very nice. Dual specs. Nikki, you want to take that one?
Yep, for dual specking, first and foremost, I'm going to have to say shenanigans Bioware. Dual specking is huge in a lot of other MMOs. There's no current plans for it to be in patch 1.3. Looks like it's more along the lines of 1.4. And just to clarify, dual specking is going with, say, a Sith Warrior as an example. Dual specking is for example, a tanking tree or swapping over to a damage tree. It's not dual specking as in swapping your advanced class between Juggernaut and Marauder. So again, clarification with that. But being able to swap your skill tree on the fly or just before you start a flashpoint sort of thing, that's not close right now. So like I said, huge. It should be something. It's really hyped, but it's not coming quite yet. So it's kind of like, come on, guys, poke. Let's see that happen.
Yeah, I hear you. They have it tentatively scheduled for 1.4. Tentatively scheduled. All right.
Yep.
So datacrons and legacy systems came up. Currently need to be collected on every character to gain the benefits, was mentioned. Also, a proposal to have them benefit across all characters in legacy is being considered. So I think people are probably happy to hear that. Crafting math.
Yep. Crafting math. Essentially with baseline crit chance was one of the questions, and reverse engineering, things like that. So baseline critical to get your augments, the 4th slot on orange gear, or the augment slot on a lot of green blue. What you're looking at for getting those crits when crafting an item, if you're at orange difficulty, meaning it's you've just barely unlocked the ability to start making said item, it's about a 10% chance. Once it goes yellow or yellow, green, gray, you're looking at about 15% chance to actually get that crit and then get that extra slot in the game, your piece of gear. And then moving into the companion bonuses for crafting. Companions with bonuses specified +1 up to +5 is usually +1% to up to +5% respectively. So for each plus, there's a percent. Pretty straightforward. And then the affection level, as to how that works. The affection level is actually pretty crucial here, as using a companion with +2 bonus on, say, a green level crafting mission with maximum affection, it offers you 22% bonus. So you're gaining your maximum affection, which of course being 20%, then your extra 2% for their bonus. So be nice to your companions, give them some gifts, build them up, butter them up any way you can. They'll might be a better companion for you. And essentially meaning that every 2,000 points of affection gained +1%. So that's just quick and dirty way of looking at it. Every 2,000 points +1%, better at everything they do. Yeah. And that even counts your ship right now with patch 1.2. So even be nice to your ship droid, even though he won't be quiet.
Oh, good to know. Thank you for warning me. All right, Heather, take it.
Social gear. Present, when you go to buy it, they're locked as light, medium, heavy. Patch 1.3, they'll be able to adapt to your proficiency. So if I see an Imperial Trooper helmet, it'll adapt to me so that I have my light armor on my Jedi Consular, or similarly, if somebody is a trooper, sees something on the light gear, it'll transform to them. So if I want my digital character to look the absolutely best she can, I get to, and it will adapt to me. And more choices, the better, as far as what you want to look at and how it goes forward into the game.
Because the slave girl outfit makes so much sense as heavy armor.
Absolutely.
Why not? If it makes sense going into battle, whoever wants to wear it should wear it.
Well, while we're talking about some gear a little bit, the question of combination mods while leveling came up, and the answer was basically as such. Not intended to be optimal for your class while you're leveling. It's more like it's designed to encourage you to seek out a crafter for custom orders, but it'll do the job in the meantime. And I grok that, because that's the whole, like for me, I don't craft, but going out and finding somebody else who plays who does craft makes it a social experience.
Yep. Just those combinations generally will generally make your damage more potent as you're leveling up. But as you probably saw with our live play today, I handed Chris some stuff that's generally going to much more specific to his lightsaber, his sorcerer. So join a guild, befriend a crafter that's tuned to your class, or do it yourself, and it'll improve your experience.
Very great. Very great. All right, Heather.
Oh, gear. Companion gear. Unify colors. I was so excited when this came on my main character. I don't look like a clown because I am obsessed with exactly how my character wants to look. And I want my companion to look the same. I want my companions to look good. So their unifying color is going to be coming. And finally, their little head slot will be able to be, you decide whether it's seen or not, because companion headgear is awful and terrible sometimes, and during cutscenes, I just want to take their helmet off,
Yeah.
have the cutscene, and then
Mhm.
just slap it back on.
Yeah.
Because I
It's-
don't want to have a terrible big helmet and have their voice all muffled because they're speaking through a helmet.
I agree.
Mhm. That actually was something that, well, other than your companion continually looking like a clown, changing their gear over, that with Blizz, with my bounty hunter that just hit 50, it was driving me nuts because I would give him my old helmet because he used a similar stance to my bounty hunter, and it sounded like he was talking. Because I mean, the helmet is probably as big as Blizz, so it just sounds like he's talking into a cavern. And oy.
For Blizz.
Nikki, we got one on here flagged for you about loot drops.
Yes, for anyone who's been in a Flashpoint, hard mode Flashpoint, or in a raid, and you've gone through it, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, that gear that just dropped off that boss, that's for a Sith assassin. We don't have a Sith assassin in this group. What WTF?
Yeah,
and
what a waste.
keyboards flying and
Right.
things like that. Well, the loot tables are going to be further adjusted, and they're going to be increasingly biased toward the classes that are in your group. It's going to be tuned or more finely tuned. So I think it's not just base class; it's going to be tuned much more even to advanced class. Although they don't say it, I think that's kind of what they're going for. And also, they have pretty much said that endgame flashpoints have not been using this loot bias thus far. That's going to change, and the idea being that this is intended to almost, not 100%, but almost guarantee high level drop that will be useful to summon in your group during specific endgame flashpoint and or a raid. Because the last thing you want, again, like I said, to get something that, I mean, especially if it's your base class. So, but if you're a sniper and you get something that drops for an operative, you're just going to be like, what? I can't finish my set bonus with this. And, you spent those 3 hours defeating Karaga or Soa in the Eternity Vault, or, taking down that in the hard mode flashpoint. And you're just like, that's not what I need. It's so close, but not there.
Yeah, it's very frustrating.
Almost.
The only thing that would make me feel better is if I could pick my character up and move it to a server with all of my friends. I'm sure that's happening really soon, right, Heather?
Yes, rolling out early this summer. First, there's going to be some free transfers to and from very specific servers. I think it's kind of along the high population, low population we were talking about earlier, kind of allowing people to kind of move and congregate. It's later they're talking about promotional transfers, paid services. I knew that the paid service was going to come. They can't not do that. I'm looking forward to that so I can pick up old characters that I did on my first server, drop them into my new friend server. So be able to do that. It's nice. It's coming.
All right. Early summer's not so bad.
Yeah.
Right? I guess not. All right. We got another, we have another items Q&A one that came up, didn't we, Nikki?
Mm-hmm. Yes, this one's regarding the armor set bonuses. Now, right now, item set bonuses can actually have those extracted and moved to orange gear. So you're moddable. You can get whatever look you want based on that orange gear. However, this is passed through. This is passed through your armoring. So when you open up the gear modification screen, armoring, modification, and enhancement, it's attached to the armoring piece. Now, something that I know a few people are a little bit peeved about, this only works on new armors added since 1.2. So all the column eye gear that my Sith sorcerer is wearing can't go and pass on that set bonus, but can be passed on with like the campaign gear, which is brand new for the nightmare modes. So you can't pass it on with the older gear being Tiny's, Column and Ricotta. But if you're running those nightmare hard modes, or some of the newer gear, like I believe you might be able to do it with the new Battle Master, but I'm not 100% sure. But you can definitely do it with War Hero because it's been added after patch 1.2, so with PvP armors, what you could potentially do is just move those sets or move the set bonuses over and not just change mods out, things like that. So if you don't like the look of let's say your campaign gear, or you have a very specific look with pieces of orange gear, like the legacy gear you can buy on your capital world. You can actually buy that gear, swap all your in-game either PvP mods and set bonuses in, or the campaign mods into those very specific orange moddable pieces to get that certain look for that narcissistic Jedi in your life.
Ah.
Hey.
Oh,
hey,
Heather.
I resemble that.
Oh
It's a
no, we're
very
not
good
saying
looking
anything.
gear.
Here. I'm just saying. It's just some people
I resemble good
might be
looking
interested in
gear,
that. All right, well, because the 1.2 patch is old and busted and we need something new and shiny, they also slipped out a little info about patch 1.3. One of the features that they're talking about introducing in patch 1.3 is a group finding system. Now, not groundbreakingly new here, but not something every MMO has, and definitely something I'm looking forward to. Also, the next stage of the legacy system, which we can already kind of get a little peek at from the in-game menu, is also going to roll out into the 1.3 patch.
Yep, check out your legacy system. You'll see some of that new stuff being teased. It's up and coming. It's going to be great. Great stuff. You can actually, if you look at the legacy trailer, there's a section, just a few seconds video that says "and more to come." Check that out. You'll see a couple of quick glimpses. Really good stuff.
Yeah.
And just going back quickly to the group finding system, you need help finding that healer for a heroic or flashpoint, trying to find a tank, make your life a little bit easier, just because right now the current helping or social thing to find players not quite up to snuff.
Yeah. Well, speaking of things coming up, next week on TORked, we visit the Guardians of Peace and Justice in the Old Republic. The Jedi Knight and the Jedi Counselor learn how they intend to keep the Sith Empire from dominating the galaxy, and a new math segment with Nikki, the hard mode Flashpoint and Operation Preparation Guide, where she'll share the secrets of forging your level 50 into a viable hard mode Flashpoint and Operation Ready machine. Oh yeah. I'm looking forward to that. There we go, ladies.
It's going to be great. Tune in.
Yeah, I think that's our whole show, yeah?
I think so.
All right, well, thanks very much, ladies. And thank you, everyone, for tuning into this week's episode of TORked. We'll see you right back here next week. And may the Force be with you.